Today on the soon-to-be Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we talk a little bit about the Fiesta Bowl and potentially making plans that way. We bring up Dillon Gabriel and the Ole Miss quarterback situation for 2022, and we talk a little bit about basketball season and the start off to it. So thanks for tuning in to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Hope everybody enjoys it, and stick around. Hey, welcome to the podcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the podcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. I'm probably the only person you know of that has spent 10 years in the national media and 3 years in the Manning Center, and we're here to talk a little bit about Ole Miss sports today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss podcast, soon to be Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. We're working on getting that link up. We'll get that to you as soon as we have it. Again, my name is Stephen Willis. Thank you for tuning in. I want to talk a little bit about the Fiesta Bowl as you're starting to see a little bit of traction between the Fiesta Bowl and Ole Miss kind of getting married together. And my first question is, you take a school that has never lost a party and you put it in the Fiesta Bowl, what happens? I am real curious about that. Now, I'm sad it's not the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. It's now the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, because some chips and salsa would be pretty good to put up with for the season. So the way I see it is I think the committee wants a Notre Dame versus Ole Miss game, because if everything goes chalk, if Cincinnati wins, if Georgia wins, if Michigan wins, and Oklahoma State wins, the Ole Miss versus Notre Dame game would be the highest possible ranked game that they could put together. And the reason I say that is Alabama is locked into the Sugar Bowl, and then that situation they would play Baylor. I mean, that's locked in, set in stone. And if Ohio State is the second Big Ten team, they're locked into the Rose Bowl along with Oregon or whatever, as long as Oregon wins their championship game, if Iowa wins their or Michigan wins their championship game. They're locked in there. So the biggest ranking of the four teams, because the four teams available is going to be Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Michigan State, and let's say Pittsburgh. It might be Wake Forest, but let's say Pittsburgh. And if you look at the different iterations of the game, they do not want a Notre Dame and Pittsburgh game because of the ACC tie-in. So that eliminates that. So you could have a Notre Dame, Michigan State game maybe, but who would tune in exactly for that? I mean, you could have an Ole Miss Michigan State game in the Fiesta Bowl that people would tune in for that. I think the largest draw of those two access bowls with no tie-ins will be the Ole Miss versus either Notre Dame or Michigan State game. That's just period. That's just the way it is. All of the buzz that surrounds Ole Miss will be coming to town. Lane Kiffin's coming to town. If you have a brand like Notre Dame, that's coming to town. Now, if you look at the playoffs, they did say last week that coaches and players being out for the bowl game factors in their decisions for the playoff and the ranking. So I do not expect Notre Dame to move at all, not playing. No matter what happens, I think they're at their ceiling. I think their ceiling is 6. So they are guaranteed for a New Year's 6 bowl. Now, let's say Michigan, Alabama, and Cincinnati all lose. All three of those. Georgia's the only winner. I think Alabama in that situation is guaranteed, so that'd be the second team that comes in. Because if it goes chalk, there's essentially 4 teams for 5 places right now in the college football playoffs. So I think if it goes chalk, that's what's going to happen. So if those 3 teams lose, Alabama's going to make it back in. So that's 2 spots. That would put Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl, by the way, in that scenario. Maybe. But what happens after that? Cincinnati is out of the playoffs. They're done. So if you look at that, you have Ohio State down at 7. You have Notre Dame with no coach, who they're not going to put in a team with no coach in the playoffs. So Notre Dame is out. So your question becomes, if Oklahoma State loses, Baylor moves up. So Baylor might be the 3rd team that gets in. And from there, it would be the Ole Miss Ohio State winner. I mean, there's already 2 SEC teams. I think that Ole Miss's ceiling might be 5 in this playoff round. I think Ole Miss's ceiling is essentially TCU from 2014. I think they have a chance to get to 5. I don't see them getting into the playoff, just because if Alabama loses and gets in, that's 2 SEC teams. Do you really want 3? Do you really want 3? And so that's the reason I think in the playoff, for that terms, Ole Miss's ceiling is about 5. So that it means an Access Bowl or New Year's Six, or however you want to put it, is going to be the way forward for the Rebs. So that's what you're looking for. Alabama and Baylor in the Sugar Bowl, if just chalk happens, I'm actually kind of looking forward to that game. I want to see Dave Aranda and the former LSU staffs going against that Alabama group. I'm interested in seeing that. I'm a little bit interested in the Peach Bowl. The Peach Bowl is probably going to be the lesser tier bowl. And now just remember, with Ole Miss played in the Peach Bowl, the Chick-fil-A kickoff on Labor Day. They go next year to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. I do not think the Peach Bowl and the committee would place Ole Miss, because they're trying to maximize that game and what's going on. So I do not see Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. The Peach Bowl obviously wants Ole Miss. Everybody that's not a playoff bowl wants Ole Miss at this point. The Sugar Bowl wants Ole Miss, because if Alabama doesn't make the playoff and falls to the Sugar Bowl, they definitely want Ole Miss in that situation. So it's a good team, but just disappointment going to the Sugar Bowl is a different thing than an Ole Miss team making the Sugar Bowl for the 2nd time in 50 years. It's still going to be a big deal. I just don't want to play Oklahoma State, period, at all, because it's just a headache at this point. Because I just don't want Oklahoma State. We played them in 2003 in the Cotton Bowl, 2009 in the Cotton Bowl, and 2015 in the Sugar Bowl. So about every 7 years, which if you look at the clock and at the calendar, you can see we're due for a New Year's Day big game against Oklahoma State. That always seems to pop up on the calendar. I want Ole Miss to play in a big game, honestly, against a non-Big 12 team. So Ole Miss versus Michigan State, I'd be all for it. Ole Miss versus Notre Dame, I'd be all for it. And I just want to see what that looks like and how that does. And I don't think Notre Dame is going to just drop down since they lost their coach. I think they're going to get their New Year's Six bowl. But this is a pretty big deal that Brian Kelly left for LSU as far as Notre Dame's prospects moving further. If you take into account the fact that they did that, Notre Dame was in the running for a playoff spot. They were absolutely in a running for the playoff spot. If Alabama and Oklahoma State lost, they were in position to take that 4th spot. Now that Brian Kelly's out, that does not look likely. Just playing Oklahoma State in general, John. It's that one thing. For whatever reason, over the last 20 years, Ole Miss and Oklahoma State has been tied on these major bowl games at the hip. It's the weirdest thing. They played in 03, they played in 09, they played in 15. So, yeah, just about playing Oklahoma State. It doesn't matter where they go, just as long as Oklahoma State. I almost want them to make the playoff, so they're eliminated from contention. Just looking at it. Anyway, all right, college football fanatics. All right, college football fanatics, have you heard about Prize Picks? Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love this, and you will too. Prize Picks is the leader in fantasy football daily. They offer more college football props than anywhere in the world and offers all the stars of the players of a Power 5 team as well as mid-major programs. Prize Picks offers any yards you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. Basically, all of you that sign up for it, there's $100. They'll match it up to $100. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under of their projection, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you versus the numbers. Prize Picks allows mixed sports entries as well. You can take the over on LeBron along with the under on Mahomes in the same entry. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and the app, Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Prize Picks are safe and offers fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. Also, again, I want to remind everybody and just thank everybody for making the future Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Thank you very much for that. We're trying to get a YouTube situated. Once we have that link, you will have it as well. Now, moving on, the transfer portal has been a little bit active over a little bit, and everybody's starting to talk about the potential of Dillon Gabriel to join Jeff Lebby. Now, what is starting and what is going on? There's a vacuum of information at Ole Miss, and it's by design. Nobody is talking. The Good Old Bowl network has been shut down. It is all Lane Kiffin and what they do. They operate a little bit differently than everything we've been used to for the last 50 years. But hey, we won 10 years this year, so kind of works. So, Dillon Gabriel entered the transfer portal 3 days ago, something like that. And everybody automatically started connecting dots. You had the people that wanted to connect him to Josh Heupel at Tennessee. You saw him at Jeff Lebby at Ole Miss. And you started to see crystal balls roll in on his transfer. Now, looking at his transfer, he led the charge for UCF to basically hire Jeff Lebby last year when they hired Gus Malzahn. That didn't work for UCF. So after he broke his collarbone, he sat out for the rest of the year, held his red shirt in check. So basically he has 3 years of eligibility. It might only say 2 years for now, but he has a medical red shirt that he can take. Just understand that as well. So people started connecting dots, and even then, once they figured out what was going on with Ole Miss, I think that Dillon Gabriel wants to join Jeff Lebby wherever he is. Let me put that out again. Jeff Lebby and Dillon Gabriel, I think, are attached wherever he is. Now, I do not expect Jeff Lebby to go to Oklahoma. You might hear that and what's going on. That is a lateral move that could potentially stunt his ascension in college football. All of his growth, the rocket ship that he is on, that could absolutely stunt that. Now, I expect Dillon is somewhere between 5'11 and 6 foot. He's about an inch shorter than Matt Tripp. And he's a guy that Jeff Lebby recruited for this offense. Well, let me say the version of this offense that Josh Heupel runs. So it's a lot of the same stuff. There are slight variation. Dillon Gabriel throws a fantastic deep ball. If you look at his highlights, you can actually see why he would be effective in a system like this. He has a really strong arm, and he's more athletic than people realize. He's actually a fairly good runner. I do not expect him to do things that Matt does. I don't think you should expect anybody to do things that Matt does. He has physical gifts that just exceed most quarterbacks are out there. I mean, there's NFL quarterbacks out there that would trade for his arm right now. And I think he would be a good fit at Ole Miss. Right now, I do expect him to be at Ole Miss, but that is going to be dependent on Jeff Lebby. I do expect that the one offer that everybody should be worried about is the ULL offer. If he were to get that head coaching job, that would be a problem. That would help his trajectory. Whenever Lane leaves, he would be in the driver's seat to come back, because I do think that Jeff Lebby is a de facto coaching waiting at Ole Miss. I think he's done a fantastic job. His reputation around the program is fantastic. The leadership really likes him, and he will be on the short list whenever Lane leaves, if Lane leaves. When trying to predict what Lane Kiffin does is interesting. You're wrong more often than you're right. So understand that. So that's the Jeff Lebby and Dillon Gabriel attached to the hip. If Jeff Lebby were to get the ULL job, Dillon Gabriel would probably transfer to ULL. That's what I'm saying. If Jeff Lebby stays at Ole Miss, Dillon Gabriel's going to come to Ole Miss. Now, other quarterbacks are in the portal, like Spencer Rattler. Jake Hayner's going to Washington, but he's in the portal for now. And Lane Hatcher from Arkansas State popped in. Miles Brennan, the kid from Ohio State. Now, I am not downplaying the talent of Luke Altmaier. You've heard me say over and over this season that he is a fantastic quarterback. But what Ole Miss needs is competition in that room. If Dillon Gabriel comes to Ole Miss, he's coming to be the guy. If he gets beat out by Luke Altmaier's a special dude. Because make no mistake, you bring in a guy, you're expecting him to be the guy. You're not going to hand it to him. He's going to have to compete for it. But if Luke Altmaier wins that job, that is a net positive for Ole Miss football. Now, remember, when looking at players and thinking about players and things like that, if you come from the program and angle, everything best for the program, and not so much a little bit of a cleat chaser mentality, trying to be friends with athletes and stuff like that, you would come up to a different conclusion. And usually whenever you're just the program, the best for the program, you're going to be in better shape moving forward with quarterback position, because you're not necessarily rooting for one guy. But Luke Altmaier, I absolutely think he'll have a shot to compete for that job if he gets Dillon Gabriel as a great quarterback. And if I think for some reason Devin Brown, if he comes as the freshman in the early championship or early signing period, all of a sudden you have a really nice quarterback room. You've built in a lot of depth. And Ole Miss is going to attack the portal in the offseason. That is quite obvious. And in doing so, you're going to be able to kind of improve your lot a little bit over the next couple of weeks, higher than you could if the transfer portal was not in play. If it was only like it was a signing class 5 years ago, you could not improve very quickly or as quickly as you can now. That's the important part about this. And for second-tier schools, and that's what Ole Miss is at the moment. It's a second-tier school in the SEC. Ole Miss has a chance to equalize with the leaders. Nobody wants to talk about this, but you have a chance to improve your roster in a way that before only 3 or 4 teams nationally had the ability to do. And you had to slowly build up to get to where they're level. It would have been a 10-year build to where if a coach left, you were absolutely screwed. That's not the case anymore. You can fill holes and do things because the reality is, and this is going to be hard for some Ole Miss fans to, process. But at this point, there are 90, 100 Division I schools below you. Yeah, Jake, that actually did happen. There was a Twitter piece talking about, he's asking about the Arch Manning video. I think Arch Manning was having a little bit of fun. I I'm not taking that. I do expect at this point, it's going to go to the end, but at this point, I do expect Ole Miss to get Arch Manning. But that video is not necessarily a tip of the hand. So, yeah, just for that. All right, betonline.ag has you covered for all season with more props, more odds, and more lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoff. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also, I want to tell you about Built Bar. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar, or even better, better than a candy bar, Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. So many flavors, you'll have a hard time choosing. Will you have raspberry or milk brownie or cherry or double chocolate, maybe some cookies and cream or peanut butter brownie? Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down all those mall doors and battle all those holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something to keep you going. So throw one on your jacket, purse, or anything you know. Anything you have, you never know when you're going to need it because it's the season of peace and love. Don't bring up your favorite Built Bar flavor at a family party. People are so passionate about their favorite flavor, they'll fight for it, and things could get a little bit out of hand. You friends with Santa? Well, yeah. Tell Santa to throw a few Built Bars in those stockings. With so many flavors, they'd make anyone's Christmas a happy one. Want to cozy up with something warm? Here's a holiday secret. Dip your Built Bar into a piping hot cup of cocoa. Let it melt a little and give your beverage a little bit of that Built Bar flavor. You'll be nice to have a melty Built Bar to go with it. Be sure to have a couple of napkins on hand as well. And also, like some of those marshmallow treats around the holidays, you need to get your hands on Built Bar Puffs. They're light, they're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, through and through, different flavors all covered in chocolate. Taste so good and you won't believe they're filled with protein. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order. Again, that is use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, so Ole Miss won last night by 24 points over Rider. But the important thing is, during the second half, you actually saw a little bit of the promise that this team has. The stuff that we were built up in the preseason, you started to see that. Now Ole Miss is 5-2. They struggled a little bit at the tournament that was over in Charleston. And you can see how good they are. And I think the key to it was outside shots. If you make the outside shots, you're going to be in a good position to kind of proceed. And your inside opens up, and all of a sudden the whole team gets a little bit better because of those shots going in. And I think that is fairly interesting to see, especially with Memphis coming into town Saturday. Remember, we will not talk about that game because we're going to be dark next week. So no Palmcast, no Beast of the East, no Best of the West, no SEC After Dark next week, as we are going to be completely dark, and I am going to be at Disney. Just a heads up. So after the bowl is announced on Sunday, there's probably not going to be a show. But subscribe to the Locked On Ole Miss shows. Just search Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all your podcatchers that you watch or listen to this podcast now. search the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Subscribe to it, hit notifications, and you'll know when we go live, because we're planning on 11 o'clock on December 13th to be our first show. And you can obviously tell the difference in the format right now. So I'm excited for basketball season. I'm kind of ready to see them to develop. Now, like, the month of December is going to be huge for these guys to get ready for it, because the SEC is a bear. SEC is absolutely a bear. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to have a rough year. This team can be good. You saw that in the second half of the game. You saw an athletic, good team in the second half. First half, not so much. They need to put those together and start getting a little bit more consistent. That's just my opinion. But the game against Memphis will tell us a lot. If Ole Miss can pull that out, whether by 1 point or 20 points, it doesn't matter. Just if Ole Miss pulls that game out, that's going to be a major stepping stone for them moving forward. Anyway, thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss, the future Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your first listen every day. Tomorrow we will continue to talk about bowl games and basketball as we hit December and college sports. And listen to that for sure. Now, make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Tune in for that. Tomorrow, tune in for the Pomcast. We'll have a lot of fun. We'll have a good time, and we're just going to build this up and up. Please evangelize the show, the Locked On Show. Get ready for it. But this is kind of what the format is going to look like. We've been slowly building up over the last couple of weeks. So hope everybody has a good day. Tune in tomorrow. And, of course, hotty toddy.